The missing person report that erased my entire life. The midnight stop and the red banner. It was 2 in the morning on a lonely stretch of highway in Nevada. I was driving home from a late shift, thinking about my rent and my grocery list. When the blue and red lights flashed behind me, I thought it was just a broken taillight. But when the officer, a man named Miller, took my license, he didn't come back for 10 minutes. When he did, his hand was on his holster. He turned his laptop screen toward me. Across my photo, in bold, terrifying red letters, it said, "Active missing person case." I laughed. I actually laughed. I told him I'm Natalie. I'm 25. I've lived in this state for 3 years. But Miller pointed to a birth certificate on the screen. It said I was 19. It said I disappeared at age 4 from a grocery store in Ohio. My entire reality started to melt. He showed me a photo of a 4-year-old girl with a messy ponytail and a tiny scar on her chin. I touched my own chin. The scar was right there. I had spent 15 years believing a lie that was carefully constructed by the only person I ever trusted, my mother, Denise. The face of the stranger. In the police station, the air felt like ice. Miller told me the woman who filed the report, Allison, was on her way. I watched her through a glass partition. She was small, looking frail, clutching a manila folder like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. Daily. When she walked in, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "Hi, Natalie." She opened that folder and laid out 15 years of a life I wasn't allowed to have. Baby photos, hospital records, and the age progression photos the FBI made every single year. She told me about the 15 seconds she turned her back at the grocery store. 15 seconds that cost her 15 years. She described my favorite teddy bear, my first word, and the exact day I got that scar on my chin. Denise had told me it was a bike accident when I was 8. But the photo in front of me showed a 3-year-old Natalie with the scar already there. My memories weren't just blurry, they were manufactured. The phone call to the kidnapper. I stepped outside to call Denise. My heart was pounding against my ribs. When she answered, her voice was warm, like a safety net. "Hey sweetie, you okay?" I asked her. "Mom, do you know an Allison?" The silence on the other end was the loudest sound I've ever heard. When she finally spoke, the motherly warmth was gone. It was replaced by a cold, calculating tone I'd never heard before. She didn't deny it. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, "I gave you a life she couldn't. I was a better mother. I saved you from her carelessness." She had watched us for weeks. She had a car seat ready before she ever walked into that parking lot. She had picked me out like an object from a shelf. She moved me across 7 states in 15 years, always one step ahead of the feds, always packing our boxes in the middle of the night and calling it an adventure. The final confrontation and the new reality. The police raided the house. Denise didn't fight. She stood there with a terrifying calm as they opened her secret lockbox. Inside was my real birth certificate with Allison's name on it. Denise had looked at that box every day for 15 years and never felt a shred of guilt. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me and said, "You were mine." It wasn't an apology, it was a claim of ownership. Now, I'm living in a world where my mother is a criminal and a stranger is my blood. Allison and I talk once a week. We talk about dinner. We talk about the weather. She doesn't force me to love her, and I don't know if I ever can. But for the first time in 15 years, I know my real name. I'm not just a ghost in a stolen life. I'm Natalie, and I'm finally starting to breathe.